Welcome, everyone, to our ClubOS University today. This is episode number 1, 2022. Club Industry and ClubOS have our esteemed host, Noshirvani, with us today to discuss helping your staff keep your members engaged with Mark Miller and Greta Wagner. I am recording this, so this is going to be available after the fact for all of you folks that have registered. So we'll also have some time at the end for some question and answers. Please feel free to use the chat box to type in your questions. We'll make sure that we address them. And Al, without any further ado, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal, and thanks to Club Industry. Today we're going to be talking about staffing, and I think it's an appropriate time to discuss this. We've got two fitness industry veterans, Greta Wagner from Chelsea Piers and Mark Miller from the Merritt Athletic Clubs here in Maryland. A couple of housekeeping items for everybody. The folks over at ClubOS have done a tremendous job in putting together this ClubOS University series. And one of the things that they've also done is created a Facebook group that you can join to sort of keep the conversation going. This event is run every single month, and we have a whole host of topics that we've covered and that we'll continue to cover. We've talked about prospecting, we've talked about marketing, we've talked about new engagement strategies and retention. Payments is coming up, so lots of interesting things. Typically, we hold it on the third Monday of each month, and you'll get invitation to the Facebook group having registered for this webinar, and you will also have an opportunity, of course, as Crystal mentioned, to ask some questions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to just take a moment and let both Greta and Mark introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their businesses, and then we'll jump right into the questions. Greta, why don't you go first?
Sure. I'm Greta Wagner. Currently, I'm the executive director and EVP of Chelsea Piers, Connecticut. Chelsea Piers, we opened our flagship in 1996. We have locations in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, and then Stamford, Connecticut. And we are in expansion mode as well for another site in Manhattan and another site in Brooklyn. We're basically a very large sports and entertainment complex. New York is more recreational, Connecticut is more competitive teams, but we have that element of membership and fitness as well, and are expanding our fitness brand. So lots of people, lots of space.
Awesome, thanks for the Mark.
Mark Miller, Chief Operating Officer at Merritt Clubs. We're in Baltimore, Maryland. We have 9 locations. Big, large, multi-purpose clubs, aquatic centers, summer camps, food and beverage. So kind of fit the whole gambit across the board. We kind of tool ourselves as the premier athletic club, the high-end player in the market.
Awesome, thanks, Mark. So I think everyone has heard about what's referred to as the Great Resignation and how businesses are experiencing staff turnover, how hiring has become not only more difficult, but more expensive. I just want to start out by asking both of you, and maybe Mark, you can start, to talk about how this impacted you. And I think the fitness industry, perhaps more than others, was more adversely impacted by not only the Great Resignation, but COVID in general, because of this affinity from personal trainers and others to begin their own little home businesses when things shut down. And many of them have continued to do that. So do you want to talk a little bit about how the Great Resignation impacted you, Mark, and then how you've recovered from that?
Yeah. So, well, like many people on this call, I'm sure, when COVID hit, we actually had to basically, we paid about a month's salaries to everybody, and then we basically put everyone on leave. You know, and we all thought this was going to be a short period of time, and then it just continued longer. So we ended up keeping about 47 of our managers and department heads during the time of COVID. And, you know, we spent time retooling the business, looking at everything, figuring out how we could improve it, make it better, stronger, and everything. And then when we reopened, Al, much as you said, you know, we probably had about 110 personal trainers prior to COVID, and we're at about 78 right now. And, you know, the ones that haven't come back are really the ones that have decided to go on their own. They're doing virtual stuff like that. We also had a pretty large group of Group X instructors that did the same thing. We even had one Group X instructor, which we kind of knew was never going to come back. And I joked with him because he had 80 people in a class and he was charging $10 a class 3 times a week. So the guy was making great money. And so, we initially had to kind of dig out of it. And then, we kind of went through it and we felt really solid because our managers and our department heads stayed. And, we think a lot of that is because we pay 100% of their benefits and we pay good salaries to them and things like that. And so we just made that commitment that we were going to stay paying 100% of their salaries. We pay about 85% of the rest of our staffs, but those 47 department heads, we cover everything. And then the real big challenge has been more in the summer, the aquatics and our food and beverage staff, and just finding those types of people to come back and, get those areas fully staffed again. So we had to make some adjustments last year.
Greta, you probably had similar experience in New York. Can you talk a
Very
little bit?
similar. Yeah, I mean, the leadership team stayed intact. We did furlough, obviously, probably 90% of our staff. Opened in different phases between New York and Connecticut. Right now we're operating, depending on the department and the venue, 70 to 80% of our staff. And some of that's by design. We, took the time. The silver lining, right, is you had the time to say, all right, let's restructure and let's see what we can do. So we're never going to go back to the staffing numbers that we had in the past, both leadership and frontline. We're building back more and more as the business is returning. Where we found the most challenge once the business did start coming back was that frontline lifeguards, which I think pretty much everybody in the industry has, for some reason, there's just no lifeguards around. And we're still struggling with that. Instructors and coaches. I don't know if anybody saw in the New York Times, they had a article yesterday talking about how resignation is contagious. And I think that everybody reevaluated what they were doing and what they wanted to do. And our personal trainers, just like you, Mark, started to say, well, you know what? I kept my clients while I was out and I've got a nice side business. So the first few months of opening that was a challenge, but I think as time went by, they realized it's hard to keep those clients, and it's hard to, once you lose a client, to be able to get them, get new clients coming in if they don't have a home base. So I'm very happy that all the people that we wanted to come back to the team that are committed to Chelsea Piers are back. And then we have to deal with, hiring new people as time goes by and keeping that talent coming through our doors.
You brought up an interesting point around sort of consolidating roles. Obviously, as we were going into the pandemic, the thing that I would hear pretty regularly was that, you've really buoyed and invested in your janitorial and house cleaning staff. And, that's where people were investing a lot of money. And I'm assuming that those staff levels are probably greater than they were pre-pandemic. But then in other areas, sales being the most obvious, where people weren't walking in the door, there was a lot of consolidation happening. One of the stories I heard was that people were taking an approach with their salespeople and making them more responsible for retention. Could you talk about areas where you did find sort of optimization opportunities? Greta, so start with you this time.
Yeah. We did, it's interesting because we combined a lot of the behind the scenes staff and responsibilities and made a commitment to our technology and, expanding our systems and, making sure that we had the tools and the resources. If we were going to have less number of people, that they had the tools they needed to be able to execute on a high level. And so we were able to do that. We started a concierge team that worked alongside with our sales team. So we didn't really cut our numbers in sales. And in fact, we increased the number of people who are selling our product and engaging with our members. So we went kind of the opposite approach in that department, where we beefed up our numbers and we specialized so we could have people who would focus on those member journeys and our customer journeys and have dedicated concierge service to those people. Because we have in Connecticut, we're 70% non-membership and 30% membership, because we have a huge amount of people who come in and sort of pay and play semester-based programming. Our goal is to get all of those people to become members, but they don't have to be. So that's something that during the time that we were closed and as we were rebuilding, to really find new strategies to be able to take that captive audience and get them to join as members. So we did it there. In every department, we basically picked apart what are the KPIs of each individual job, what is the actual job description, how do we make sure that we have them aligned with the talent that we have. So it was really just a deep dive and be very critical of every role, and where we could consolidate and overlap, we did. Where we needed to specialize and expand, we did. And I say we are so much stronger right now than we have ever been, which is, you know, after all the pain and, you know, to come out on the other side and be in a good place, that's where you have to be very positive and optimistic and happy that, you know, we were able to do that. So
that's awesome. And Mark, you obviously, when you lose staff, keeping the people you have is that much more important. And you talked a little bit about in your when you were talking about the benefits that you guys provide. What other changes in comp plans, PTO policies? What other benefits do you guys offer, or did you modify any of this, or is this all sort of pre-COVID that just really came to help you?
Well, we actually started it all pre-COVID. I mean, we've always been about people. And so we've always kind of tried to change the comp plans differently. So, you know, we feel we went on the benefit side on a lot of things. We offer a lot of flexibility, but we did, like Greta said, when COVID hit and we had to go through and retool things, we did in several areas. So one of the things we did is we actually did not bring back 2 or 3 of the regional positions, but we used the money and we paid the people in the field better. And so we upped the salaries of our direct managers. And we said, look, you know, we're going to give you the ownership and the responsibility because we believe in you, rather than filling the role back with someone else. And then we took a different approach than Greta did in sales. We actually scaled back on sales, but we paid them a higher salary, and we made everything into a team goal and a team plan. And so no longer is there any individual commissions or anything like that. They now, you know, it is, you know, so kind of to your point of the benefit, right? If I go on vacation in the past, if I wasn't making any sales, I lost money. Now you can go on vacation, you could be away on COVID and you're still sharing in the pool. And then, you know, we basically taught our managers, and it's a way that they can earn a little extra money as well. So, you know, by default, we might not have as many dedicated people in it, but now we have more people that are doing it and helping understand how we do it. So we started to really just look at every little area and avenue to figure out what we needed to do, you know, to stay above the minimum wage, to increase the benefits. We did have picnics last year for our employees. We did a fake retreat where we invited them all off-site, all of our managers, and then we gave them $500 in spending money. And they had to go spend it on themselves, and we were at a casino, so they could have a little bit of fun and all that. And then at the end of the year, we don't really do bonuses anymore. We got rid of those years ago. We now just do like a gift, and it's more subjective. So if we think we're having a good year, even if we didn't do well financially or budget wise, we'll give everyone a Christmas bonus, and we pay it down to about 800 employees.
That's awesome. Where can I send my resume? I'm curious to hear from both of you. And Greta, we'll start with you. You said staff went on furlough. Staff also took pay cuts. I think one of you said it, or maybe both of you said it. Did you right size those people? Because that seems to me like as things come back, that would be a great way to say, hey, we're committed to you, to go back and pay them the salary that they left on the table while we were shut down.
we did, and thankfully we were able to, because, you know, with everybody's hard work, we really did bounce back pretty nicely. We're not 100% across the board, but we're 100% in a lot of places. So we were able to get everybody where they needed to be.
Right.
So, it's so competitive right now. We're in a competitive market. We're in a competitive field. People are evaluating what they're doing with their lives. Sometimes it's not always about the money, especially now. People have had, even in our business, when we're so much customer facing and touching, where 3 years ago, 4 years ago, if you would have said, can I work remotely? You'd be like, you're insane. We're in a service business. You can't do that. I think one of the things that we've opened our eyes to is that you have to be a little bit more flexible and say, you know what, it doesn't have to be a cookie cutter approach. Clearly somebody who is, greeter or customer touching, they can't work remotely. But that doesn't mean that some of our behind the scenes services and support departments can't. Where in the past we would never allow it. Now we're like, okay, you know what? If our finance department, they were very productive and super productive. Why shouldn't we allow them to do that? If that's going to be the difference between having somebody who's just mediocre or having somebody who's fantastic. Because sometimes you don't always have the resources to put the wonderful package together with high salaries and bonuses and benefits. You really have to know your people. And that's kind of what we did. We went through and said, let's know our people better. Let's find out what motivates them. Let's ask them. So we need to be really connected and caring about our team members. It's not a one size fits all approach for us anymore. We're fair. You have to have the rules and the regulations, and you have to have the policies, and you have to have all of that. But we're also coming at it with a more human approach. And what do you need from us at that time? And it's worked.
Great. Mark, as you've brought people back in or started to rehire again, can you point to like a percentage increase that you have seen in terms of hourly salaries? I know state of Maryland recently increased minimum wage. Are you guys, is there some sort of a increase in just pay that you are now budgeting as you plan 22?
Yeah, so when we started hiring for some of the lost positions and bringing people back, obviously the wages were a lot greater. Like Greta said, people are they're just demanding more or understanding more. So we kind of looked at that and we did some salary adjustments, but we were able to, because that was part of the strategy of, not bringing back some of the positions and using the money consolidated to up the pay in other areas. And then we did do a 4% raise last year. We did another 4% raise this year to everyone's salaries. And we kind of have that intended to go for the next couple of years. And then, as a company, we made the decision to eat any of the increases in benefits as well. So we're doing that strategically, looking at people's paychecks to say, how do we ensure that they keep coming home with the money that they need to live? And then we're obviously looking at, like Greta said, because I'm a firm believer the same way. I don't think you have to get to 100%, be the top provider in the market. I think that if you pay a fair wage and you take care of them on the other side, so we're working now on a strategy where we're trying to get all of our managers so that, managers are not stuck in the clubs till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. We want them all to be out of here by 6 o'clock and home with their families. And we want 2 nights a week where they can get out of here by like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and they can be home with their families and, not miss any of the kids' events and things like that. So we think we got it figured out. We're hoping to kick it off on February 1st, but we think those types of things is where you're going to win the game more. So as long as you're paying a fair salary, I think you got to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people, I think, view the fitness industry as sort of an exit ramp at times, whether it's, a part-time job during college or a transitional job or just sort of a passion job that they work on the weekends. I'm curious to hear from you both as to how you incentivize. Obviously, we've talked about salary, we've talked about some of the benefits, but how do we solve that problem in this industry? How do we make this more of a career-oriented industry? I'd just love to get your thoughts. Obviously, career growth is one way, Your thoughts on that, Greta?
Yeah, I think that, listen, post-COVID, a lot of things don't change, the same as pre-COVID. You've got to invest in your employees, and it's not all about the salary. Like Mark said, be fair, but you have to invest on their education, and you have to invest on their onboarding. So the first introduction to the organization needs to be strong. So don't skimp on that. You need to make sure that they understand the job that you're hiring for, that they learn that, and that once they have those core competencies and they have, they're able to do the existing job, then that frees them up to say, okay, I can take on more responsibility, and have that path for them to be able to do that. Make sure that they are very familiar with all the roles that they interact with. One of the things that I think was a benefit of what we went through with COVID is, all of the Zoom meetings and the seminars that are accessible to people. We made a conscious choice to get people together more from different departments, that if we had never experienced that, when it was all about being on site together, there wasn't a ton of crossover before then. But we always believed in continuing education. A lot of what we did was in person. So we would do full day seminars on customer service. And if you wanted to expand into personal training, we would have a variety of classes, and where we would do tuition reimbursement if it was relevant to their work environment. Didn't have to be within their department, but it needed to be within our field. And if they wanted to continue, and if somebody didn't have their degree, we would be able to do tuition reimbursement for that. Now we've started to do more education online, and through our Paycom, our payroll provider, we are working with a company called InfoPro, which is going to be doing a lot of different educational, small bite-sized pieces of information that will introduce people to, if they're a front desk person and they want to learn more about becoming a personal trainer, or different ways that their role can expand within the Piers. It also helps when you're in growth mode, like I said that we are, because people can see the path. That's really important for people to have an understanding and to have a transparency. Any job opening, we put it out there to all of our people. We still do, and I know a lot of people don't, but I always feel bad for the HR department, because I know it's a heavy lift, but we still do. Every other week we put out a newsletter that is very comprehensive and includes everything from highlighting an accomplishment from a team member to a new system that we're bringing on board that will make their jobs easier, to benefits that they can access. Even just recently, they posted about the link to get your the government giving out the 4 COVID test kits. I would have never gone online to do that, but our HR department, through their email, they put everything in there, and said, if you want a link here, and it was so easy. So little things that you can provide to give people that accessibility and the information, because once they have the information, then they can say, hey, you know what, I'd like to try that. We don't have any specific mentoring or a direct path, other than like if we have a front desk person, they go to concierge, and then from the concierge, they could be a salesperson. So sort of mini paths within their department are very structured. Globally, it's like, if you've got a great work ethic, you're intelligent, ambitious, a team player, you fit the mold of what our Chelsea Piers culture is, then we will we'll explore any opportunity with an individual and talk about what they need in order to get there, if they're not there yet. So we're really big on promotion from within, which is part of our industry. I think a lot of businesses operate that way.
Yep. Mark, how about you guys? Obviously, you're part of a much larger real estate company. Do you give people a pathway to perhaps join that company out of the gems? Does that happen?
It has happened, and we do, but we've been also very fortunate that, so like my entire executive regional team and management team, I think my lowest person's been here 15 years with me.
Wow.
And so we're very intentional. So much like Greta said, our culture is our most important thing. And, we do a kickoff with all new employees. I actually handle it. It's on Sundays. They all meet with me. And then our operations director joins me. And we actually map out for them as part of that at the end. We kind of show them the whole path of growth in the company. And so they can move up the ranks all the way to becoming a regional manager, or heck, take my job. And at the same time, we do what's called an IDP with them. We give them the ability to do an individual development plan where we'll help them kind of formulate, like, what should you be reading? Who should you be talking to? What areas should you be exposed to? We have a leadership academy that people can get into. We do very similar to what Greta does. We take people on educational things. We encourage them to get also certifications. We do a lot of cross training. So we want we want our Kids Zone staff to also be lifeguards and summer camp counselors. We want, our managers on duty to be pool operators and all that. So we encourage all that and cover it. And then, if their path does lead them outside the industry, like in the real estate or whatever, we do connect them, graphic design, whatever it may be, and try to help promote them in those areas, and see what they can do. But it's all about like how we make these connections and how do we live our purpose, and really exposing them to as many options as possible. And then at the same time, we try to find out their passions, much like you do in sales. And then from there, we don't have a problem if they're like really good at art. That's how our art program started, was because some girl was good at art and she wanted to create it. And she started art camps and summer camps and a program, and she's running the whole thing. So wherever you can give them growth, I think you give it to them.
Yeah, I also think that your story speaks volumes. So just like Mark, a lot of our people have been with the organization 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And a lot of our senior leadership team have the story of their progress and how they grew with the organization. And that's shared with everybody. So we don't just show it on paper. It's like most of us have lived it.
Yeah.
And so people see that there's potential there if they have what it takes to do it.
Yeah. And I think like Greta said, you have to be bold. Like we say to all of our staff that we want 75% of all of our hires in our management positions to come from internal. And we measure it, so like they know that we're going to them first.
That clearly gives them a sense that they're part of a much bigger thing than just sitting at a front desk and checking people in.
Right.
While we're on this topic of sort of engagement, I'd love to just get, I've got my 3 little gems, and one of the things I struggle with all the time is how do you get a front desk person? What do you guys do to get a front desk person to be engaged in what they're doing when there are these moments or these lapses of time that exist between the busy times at the gym, right? So inevitably what happens, you'll see someone will pick up their phone and start looking at it, and they will miss the member who comes and does the self check-in with the barcode. First of all, do you guys both provide, or do your businesses both do self check-in by members, or do you always have an engagement with the staff member? Maybe Mark, you go first.
Most of our clubs have the staff at the welcome desk. Our 3 express clubs don't always, except for during staffed hours, 8 to 8, we do have that. But to answer your question, we hire for it, and then we train for it, and then we coach to it. And so we never let the opportunity go by. So I was in a club the other day, and the welcome desk person, he grabbed the book. It was slow in the morning. And so I went up to him and just explained to him why we don't do that. And we brainstormed, like, what are the things you can do? Where are the opportunities that you do have? And why is it so important for you to stay engaged? Because that one person that you may connect that day may be the difference you make in their lives. And that could be very impactful. And so you have to always kind of stay alert and awake. And so kind of like what Greta said, we try to share the stories of why. And, we talk to them, and we understand that sometimes, you're dealing with the very slow times, and then other times you're dealing with the chaos. And they both can be frustrating. but you're doing it for a greater purpose. And then, you know, we also back them up, like, so they see us doing it as well. I make sure that we all get to all the clubs, including myself, at least once a month. I'm in all the clubs, and I spend the day there and talk to the staff and get to know them. And, you know, if there's a birthday, I try to call them. If someone has a death in the family, I call them. So you try to keep them engaged, like you're part of their lives. And I think that they, you know, most people come in, they want to do good stuff, but they just don't know what to do. So I always say, if you don't share with them or teach them, then they fall into that MSU syndrome where they make stuff up. And then you got problems.
Yeah. Greta, how about you guys? What do you all do, Chelsea?
Yeah, you know, listen, you have your ebbs and flows of the business day. And I think the most important thing is if people understand what your goal is, the why of why we're here and what we're doing, and, you know, that we're pretty much a customer/member obsessed organization. If they understand the importance of their role, that they are part of something bigger, and they, you know, they're not just somebody sitting at a desk and checking in, that they're the front door of the experience, right? So tell them the whole story and what we're trying to convey and the importance of their role. You know, if they're on the housekeeping team, it's not like, oh, you know, go clean the bathroom or no, it's why are you here and the importance of your role to the overall success of the business. And just reinforcing that all the time and showing the appreciation for that frontline team member. And sometimes you need to do it beyond the frontline team. Yes, the desk sometimes has downtime, and it's their manager's responsibility and anybody who's working within that department to make sure that they have things that can drive the organization forward to do. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's like, your job is to sit here and smile and wait. And when somebody starts to approach you, you're on. You know, if you want to have the website up to learn more about what's happening in the organization, or, you know, our peer-to-peer learning, you know, can be up. And, you know, so give them things that are going to reinforce their contribution and their engagement to the organization. It's is what we do. And then talk to them. What else could you do? What else would you want to do? You know, how can we make this experience and your job better? I just had this conversation with our sales director. She's like, nobody wants to be at our main greeting desk anymore when we have tournaments or big, you know, we have influxes of many people who are not members, because, you know, people are feeling the strain of wear your mask. You know, we become police. So that frontline hot seat is not fun. It's not like what it used to be, which is just like, oh, say hello and be wonderful and cheerful and say goodbye and ask them about their day. No, when you have 150 people coming in at the same time and nobody wants to wear their mask and nobody wants to check in, and everybody, you know, and then you have your members at the same time that you're working with, you know, so you've got to have a little empathy and say, how can we make your job easier? But we need you to be on all the time. Yeah. It's challenging.
I want to actually talk a little bit about that. I mean, we have become police. Before I do, I want to remind everyone that you can use the chat to submit some questions. I'm going to get to those in just a moment. But, you know, we have asked our staff members to become police, as you mentioned, Greta, and we're constantly telling people, you know, they're constantly being forced to, you know, put your mask on, give me your vaccine card, show me this, show me that. And it's almost juxtaposed to the way that this industry was for so many years. Our only sort of directive to staff was often just make sure that the member is as happy as they possibly can be. When do you notice, like, when people start to get burned out from doing this? Because it's hard work. I was traveling this past week and saw an airline, a flight attendant, just sort of throw her hands up in the air and walk in frustration because she'd asked the person sitting across the aisle from me for the 6th time to pull his mask up over his nose, and he wasn't doing it. And you know, it's oftentimes the same member that behaves this way in our gyms anyway. How do you deal with that? Greta, since you brought it up, I'd love for you to get Jake, and then Mark, love to get yours too.
Listen, I talked about, I think earlier, the lack of control. Like, people want control over their work and what they do and the meaning behind it. And when you have that repetitiveness of my work is not producing the results that we want, right? And it's frustrating. I think as a leadership team member, you have to be able to draw the line. Like, I bristle sometimes at the things that I have to send out these days. Like, I sent out a letter to our hockey parents the other day that basically I was yelling at them saying, we're going to ban you from this facility because I will not allow you to abuse anybody at Chelsea Piers. 5 years ago, I couldn't imagine myself writing a letter that's going out to the large masses, yes, an individual one-off, but I think that you need to set the tone of, our team members are important to us. They're our greatest asset of who we are as a company and our culture. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions that say, yes, we're putting you above the customer because the customer or the member is behaving badly, and we won't accept that. That speaks volumes. So, their jobs are a little bit tougher and tedious, and you never want to get somebody to that sense of hopelessness, like, why bother? Because that's where the burnout happens. They're doing these repetitive tasks. They're not getting the gratification. They're not getting success. And they feel like their job is meaningless. And that goes for the front line, but it can also be, frankly, on the leadership team. People are tired. People spent many months doing multiple jobs and not being able to see an end in sight. Thankfully, we might see an end in sight, now. You never know. But I think you have to celebrate those small successes. And again, communication, tune into and listen to and probe a little bit more than ever. I have gotten to know my team members, that you can pick up those small little nuances, those small sort of indicators that, they've been going for 21 days and they're tired. Find balance, take time off, even if it's like, I'll surprise people midday. Let's go to lunch. Let's get off site. Let's leave. Let's go have lunch, or let me go buy the department lunch. It's those simple little things that can also change somebody's day. And then have a conversation about how they're feeling. You look tired. You look like you're not as, I'm sensing that you're not engaged. Your schedule's a little erratic. You're late, or you're not getting projects done on time. There's a lot of, sort of indicators, small ones they're subtle sometimes, that you have to sort of tap into. Financial pressure, family pressure, the career might not be as, because their jobs are not what they signed up for originally. And you got to just keep thanking them and talking to them to find that out.
Yeah, for sure. Mark, how about you guys and Merritt?
Yeah, so I think Greta
Yeah.
did a great job. I think she nailed it on the head in the sense that the first step we take is you got to just go talk to your staff. You got to get out there and you got to let them know that how difficult it is, and share some gratitude with them and what they're going through. So little things. If you haven't read the book, The 5 Love Languages, it's a great book, and everyone kind of has a language. So you got to find out what works for them. And some people, it might be a little gift card. Other people, it's just, a thank you, a pat on the back. The other thing is you got to share all the good moments, right? So if you have Medallia, we have MXM and we use it. And, we get the comments back from people on there saying, thank you for keeping it clean. Thank you for enforcing the mask policy. So we share that with the staff to say, hey, look, it is making a difference. Because you got to share the positive and not just the negative. Sometimes you got to draw out the noise of the negative. But at the same time, you have to protect the staff. And we made it very clear, much like Greta did. When we first reopened, we had everybody, all members, sign a new waiver. And in that waiver, it said we would not tolerate any disrespect to any of our staff members, their family, and we will not have that done. And we have a 1 and out type of policy. So we'll give you one chance to make it right. We'll give you a little warning and all that. And then after that, we will relieve you of your membership and suspend you. And we make it very clear that our staff matters most. and that we have their back. I think Greta said earlier, we're in the human business, we're people, and no one deserves to be treated or mistreated or anything just because of a few dollars of a membership and all that. And so when you make that stand, two things happen, right? One is your staff sees that you have their back, and then that really gives them a lot of encouragement and something to stand on. And then the other part is that the members, you only have to do it to a few members, and then the rest of them kind of take notice. And it's funny now how, they'll try to sneak it by, but as soon as we walk by them, they'll pull their mask back up real quick, or all we have to do is kind of tap our face and they'll pull it back up real quick, and they understand. And so we set that tone right from the get-go, and we do enforce it all the time. And every now and then we have to, be a little bit more firm with people and all that, but it seems to be short-lived. And then, the last part is that you just have to be out there and thank the staff, repeatedly, and it can't just be you as the leader. Like, you have to encourage all your staff to be thanking each other, because, the Group X instructors that just walk in and teach a class and then leave, they don't see that the welcome desk is constantly stopping people or asking them. So, we try to create as much clarity and openness across the board. And then we get all of our department heads to talk with their staff about, hey, sometimes just stop by and thank them. That little interaction that you see your whole team has your back really means a lot.
For sure. Thank you. I want to pivot over to some of the questions that have come in. This is not necessarily a staff engagement question, but a good one nonetheless. What program or procedure, Greta, we'll start with you. What program or procedure did you find most successful in deterring members to not cancel when they come in to cancel?
Just in general, or COVID related?
Let's do in general, and then maybe some COVID related ones, especially this last couple of weeks.
I think we don't, not that we make it hard, but we certainly want to have a conversation with them. So we don't make it like just fill out the form and then we cancel you. Somebody from our concierge team or their membership advisor will call them and talk about the reasons why. And we document everything, obviously, and then we talk about it internally of what the best practices are and how can we save people. They came to us for a reason, right? And there was a benefit at the start. So where did we lose that benefit? Where did we lose that motivation? Is it because they're not coming in? Is it because of financial? Is it because we're failing them in some regard on delivery of expectations? So we try and figure out the why, and then dig a little bit deeper, and then ask them if they, would you like to be reintroduced to a trainer if it's because they haven't been active or they're not seeing the results. We'll give them their complimentary services again. We'll give them suggestions on a path to come to more classes if it's financial and they can't train anymore when they used to work with a personal trainer, so they're not seeing the benefit anymore. So I think it's deep discovery, just like when they first joined, of what's their motivation and why are they taking this action? And then how can we counter that with what we can offer them? Sometimes it's like, just, would you like to take a break? You have an opportunity to take 3 months off from your membership and pay a small portion, and not leave us fully, because we also have our online now that, we had to quickly shift gears when COVID hit. We now have an online platform so they can have access to all of our instructors and our trainers. And, so would you like to switch to that for, and try that while you're on break for 2 months or 3 months, and then to get them back and continue to engage. And what we never want to do is lose them completely. So even if they're not coming to the club on a regular basis, there's touch points. And we tend to save a lot of people. We get them re-engaged, give them small, commitments, and really a lot of specialized attention from whether it's the concierge sales team, the GM, they need nutrition help, if they have an issue with their team coach. So it's all hands on deck for every single member. And that seems to be the best approach that we have. We track, we communicate, and we try and save whenever possible. And if they are still determined to leave, then we wish them well. We make it so it's a very good parting. We invite them back through our emails and phone calls later on. Are you ready to come back? 6 months later, we'll put them back in the loop. Or maybe suggest another club if they're leaving the state. So we want to be remembered as the helpful people, the company that, you know, was helpful and professional and worked with them to get them through whatever situation or circumstance they're in, as a resource and a positive one. That's worked for us.
Great. Mark, how about you guys? Any programs or procedures that have worked particularly well in retaining members who come in to cancel?
Yeah, so we're very similar to Greta. You know, we try to do the exact same things. We call it our Back on Track program. So very, very similar to what she said. You know, we try to sit down with them, do like a reverse needs analysis, and then try to re-engage them somehow. However, we do have two other things that we try to do. So one is we've taken a conscious effort to try and move our customer life cycle longer. You know, so we want to add 6 months to it. So we're really trying to be more proactive and work in the front end of their membership to integrate it and get them to understand what it means to use the membership and what that value looks like. Because we know the ones that we can control are the ones that are not using the club. The people that are moving, they're moving. We can't really get them. And the people who lost their jobs, we have a financial lifeline that, you know, we'll put them on freeze and we'll let them still use the club for stress management things. But, you know, once they find a job, they get reinstated and they have to show us documentation that they actually lost their job and all that and are trying. But we try to engage them up front to try and figure out how to extend the likelihood and teach them the value and all that. And then if someone does cancel, what we're finding is a lot of the people that are canceling now are the ones that they were members 2 or 3 years ago. And so now we're going through dues increases, like a lot of people. So we do have a form that says they understand that if they leave, when they come back, they are coming back at the new current rates. Yeah. And sometimes that pauses them a minute to go, wait a minute, maybe I should just put it on freeze and take a month or 2 off and see if I can redo it. And so that's kind of helped us kind of at least deter it and get them to think about it. And once we get them to think about it, then as Greta said, you have that opportunity to re-engage them. And then you just got to figure out how to kick that door open.
Love the financial lifeline example you gave. That's something I'll definitely think about. You mentioned, Mark, earlier that you guys do have a group policy. Another question that came in, do you have a group policy for commissioning the team? This is a slightly different question here, and I want to make sure I understand it. So, Jenna, I think is the person who submitted it. If I'm missing it, please comment. Does anyone, do you, in this particular case, Mark, do you tie front desk with the sales department, or is front desk its own department? In a lot of HVLP clubs, I know you guys aren't, but in a lot of HVLP clubs, the front desk is the sales department. And so they're
two separate. They're two separate. Our sales team, we call them LCs. They all work together for a common goal and all that. Our welcome desk, however, if a welcome desk brings in a sale or gets a referral, or they do a sale when nobody's around, then they earn the commission for that, as long as nobody else had touched that thing. So, you know, they can earn a $25 or $50 commission if someone just walked through the doors and it's 7 o'clock in the morning and we don't have a salesperson on. We teach them how to do the sale so they never have to turn anybody away. And then we say, yeah, you get the commission.
Greta, you guys have dedicated sales teams, right?
We have dedicated salespeople, but we also have a very detailed referral program for both our members and our employees. So people are motivated to get, you know, their friends and family and people that they do business with to get in and sell the club. So
makes sense. We actually do at my clubs, we do have front desk who are part of the sales team. That's part of their job when we hire them. But we did create a pool, a team bonus that's based on the number of what we call PHP, personal health plan appointments that they book. So closing the deal for a membership is one thing, but then getting a person to commit and schedule their PHP creates an additional pool that's then distributed amongst the front desk staff who are obviously responsible for sale. Okay. Any parting thoughts with, I'd love to just get a sense quickly, if I could. We started talking about it, Greta, before we got started with you. How is January looking, and what's your outlook for the remainder of the year? And then we'll wrap up after these answers from both of you.
Yeah, we closed 2021 really strongly and very optimistic. Our urban clubs are doing a little bit better sales-wise, and in line with what we would typically do with January. In Stamford, Connecticut, we're slightly behind what our normal January would look like in our membership sales, but our youth programming, team sports, all of that, by far, we're back to 2019 numbers and beyond. So I think it's just the Omicron kind of put a little stall, a little pause but we're seeing it pick back up. So very optimistic for the rest of the year. And I think, I'm sure by March, things are going to be rolling.
Mark, how about you?
We're the same way. So 2021, we actually had a really strong year. We exceeded 2019. That was kind of our benchmark. So we use that as our benchmark. And even though right now we're not having our typical January that we would like to have, it's slow, but that's because they put us back in masks and all that. When we went and looked at the data and we looked at things, we're better than last year, and we're very optimistic that we're on the same tracking trend. So we didn't have a great January last year, then February got a little bit better, and then like Greta said, by March, everything opened. So we're feeling very optimistic. If we can follow that exact same trend, we really think 2022 is going to be another good year, and that should get us back to where we need to be. And like Greta said, we have areas like our summer camps and our aquatic centers and swim teams and all that, and our food and beverage that really had very, very strong summers. So as long as we can get to that summertime, we're feeling very optimistic.
Well, thank you both, Greta and Mark. I appreciate you guys doing this call with the team from ClubOS and Club Industry today. I know that you guys are both very busy in the month of January. Couple of quickies. We are going to have another ClubOS University. I think it's going to be focused on payments. And that's coming on the 21st of February. That's the third Monday in February. For all of the folks that joined today, you will get an invitation and information about the ClubOS Marketing Facebook group, where we can continue the conversation. I think that is it. So Crystal, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing everything, you guys. That was great information for everyone. And Al, thank you for asking such great questions to them. Super appreciate everyone. And thanks again. We'll see you all next month.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great rest of the year, rest of January.
Yes.
See ya.
Thanks.